Welcome, Yamhill County, to Speaking Frankly. My name's Howie Harkema. I'm your host, and our tagline is, "And how we doing?" We're doing great. And today I have two guests from NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Yamhill County. I have Jan Urton, and I also have Lilly that are going to talk about the upcoming candidates forum. And we will get into that in a few seconds. But first, I'm going to ask some questions of everyone about what NAMI is. And Jan, would you like to talk about what NAMI is?
Okay, yes, NAMI is an organization, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It is an organization of people who are people with mental illness and people who are family members, loved ones, friends of people with mental illness. It's supported by the people. It's not a government program, but it cooperates extensively with our publicly supported care that's offered by the county and other entities in the county, as well as through the state. The key thing is that NAMI Yamhill County supports and provides services and programs right here in our community. And our focus is education, support, and advocacy.
So the next question is, what is mental illness and why should we care about it? Should I pass that one off to Barry?
Sure.
Hey,
Sure.
Barry, go ahead.
Okay. Well, mental illness is a brain dysfunction that is every bit as real and organic as any other illness. Mental illness occurs in all populations at all socioeconomic levels. It can be severely or mildly disabling, and it can be controlled to some extent by medications, but it cannot, at least with the current state of our knowledge, be cured. Some forms of mental illness, such as depression, may wax and wane.
Very good. So the third question is, do I know someone with mental illness? And we'll go back to Jan on this question.
Okay, well, there's the high incidence of mental illness means almost every family is touched to some extent with someone who has some form of mental illness. The incidence of mental illness is high. About 1 in 17 people have some form of a persistent and severe mental illness. We know that among celebrities, the pain and dysfunction of mental illness is sometimes made especially public. And just as in the past, illnesses like cancer were considered to be shameful and not talked about and hidden, that still is the case to some degree with mental illness, that people feel that it's something wrong with them because it affects the brain as well as the body. It affects people's behavior, how they talk, how they think about things. And so people think it's just under people's control, like you need to not do that or say that and you know better. So the lack of control is not well understood. And therefore, we can often interact with people who have mental illness and not necessarily know about it if it's not shared.
Boy, doesn't that make sense? So the fourth question I have is, what are some of the programs that NAMI Yamhill County are participating in or support? Barry?
Okay, NAMI Yamhill County supports a number of programs that are valuable to people afflicted with mental illness and to families with loved ones who are afflicted. Programs such as peer-to-peer help individuals learn coping skills and develop friendships with others like them. And the family-to-family program helps families with afflicted loved ones understand the disease and learn better how to help the loved ones. And I think if I can add just a bit of
Please
an
do.
aside, the families that I have met and know of struggle, and they need support. And NAMI Yamhill County does that. I've lost words, but
That's okay.
it's important.
It is. And so how does NAMI raise funds for these programs, Jan?
Well, we are a nonprofit organization. We get membership. There's an annual membership fee for NAMI, which is modest, but we do get money through that, and then through donations. People who want to contribute to NAMI, in particular, sometimes loved ones of someone who has died by suicide, which suicide and mental illness are very closely connected. We've had people donate in memory of someone whom they've lost. But basically we rely on donations, membership, and then we do a fundraising event once a year called the NAMI Walk, where people get out and walk. Prior to the pandemic, it was always held in Portland on the Esplanade, and people gathered together to walk for NAMI. With the pandemic, we did more walk your way, which people walked wherever they could, including just individually around their home. But again, the NAMI Walk is a significant fundraiser for NAMI.
So in doing that walk, do people donate money per mile or just to a person, or how does that work?
Yeah, good question. Basically, NAMI members ask to be supported through donation. We don't tie it specifically to number of miles walked or whatever. It's more, I'm walking for NAMI, and when we walk, we're maybe carrying signs or emblems so people know that's what we're doing. But people donate what they wish in, for that, to that person in the name of NAMI.
So is there also some sort of concert that you guys do to raise money?
We did that a few years ago. We did have a concert that was offered and donations to NAMI were asked for. Again, since the pandemic, where people really were limited in being together in person, many of the NAMI programs, including things like that, have not been occurring other than virtually. We do still hold, there are support groups and meetings that are held virtually. However, now that things are opening up, people are starting to be back together more. More is planned to be happening, and that's where we need people to get involved in getting those things going. We do have, there is one family support group, which is going to start meeting in person again. That one meets in Newburgh. And then there are others, the peer-to-peer group, the family-to-family education and other educational programs. We're hoping to get back in person. Meanwhile, NAMI Oregon does offer in various places in the state. There are some of these groups and classes being offered virtually online, and those can be found through NAMI Oregon. And I believe you have some slides to present where.
Yes, I'll bring those up next. I do have one further question though.
Sure.
I know that you guys perform a number of supports and groups. And isn't one of them suicide bereavement for those who have lost a loved one? So that's my question.
That is one of the groups that we has been offered, again, prior to the pandemic. And that is one we would like to get started again. Again, those kind of groups, some people are comfortable doing that virtually. And like I say, NAMI Oregon does have contacts for some of those. We do want to have them in person because for some people, that personal contact is really important, especially people who are grieving.
Absolutely.
So we're hoping to offer that again. And that's another reason we need more people to join in with NAMI, people who might have some interest or abilities. NAMI does offer training for people to present these kinds of groups. So generally the groups are run by someone who's experienced it themselves. So people with mental illness run peer-to-peer groups, people who are family members run the family groups, people who've experienced suicide run the groups with suicide bereavement, and NAMI does offer training for people to be able to run those groups, and having had the training, then you can do that.
So is there a website that if just somebody in the community wanted to donate towards Yamhill County's NAMI, they could go to actually do that?
What they can do is go to the website for NAMI Oregon and state specifically they want the donation to go to NAMI Yamhill County. And again, I believe you have a slide that has that
Right.
information.
I'm gonna bring up those slides next. Here we
But
go.
like one thing, can I say one
Go
thing?
ahead. Yes.
That Jan touched on and I find so important. Semantics are very important to people. And I know we used to say someone committed suicide, but the word commit has a positive tone. You know, you're committed to a relationship, you're committed to your children. So we'd rather hear people say, I would rather hear people say, they die by suicide.
Yes.
Very good. That's
Rather
really
than-
important.
It's just a matter of semantics, but it can make a huge difference.
I totally
Well,
understand that.
Yeah, and I think the implication is when you say someone committed suicide, it's like something they chose to do because they wanted to do it. Whereas we now know that suicide being tied to mental illness, many times people in the throes of the thinking going on because of the disorder in the brain, they feel compelled. It's not that they really want that. And in fact, many times when people have attempted and not succeeded, they will say, I didn't want to be gone. I wanted the pain to go away.
Of course.
And they'll say things and can say things like, people who die by suicide don't necessarily want to die. They just don't want to live.
They're fed up
Right.
or tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sounds funny. They don't want to die, but they don't want to live. I mean, but
Right.
it's just, I get kind of emotional on this.
No, I totally understand. And
Yeah.
none of us have the budgets to fix all of these problems. And so it's piecemeal at best.
Right.
But you're doing what you can do in Yamhill County. So I'm going to
Yes.
bring up the slides and we'll go through those. Can everybody see those?
Yes.
I've got something in front of it that says this meeting is being recorded.
Of course, just drop it down. Okay, so Jan, you want to take this first slide?
Okay. Yeah, when we talk about mental illness, we're actually talking about many different disorders that have different names. And it's based on our current knowledge and understanding about the brain, which is changing and growing. It's changed a lot even in the last 10 or 15 years. So the ones that are most commonly talked about are the mood disorders, depression and bipolar disorder, and the psychotic disorder, which is schizophrenia. And those are what we consider severe and persistent, meaning you can reach a place where you can function well and not be overwhelmed by those disorders, but they don't go away. You have them for a lifetime. And a word about depression, that word is a little tricky because any of us can feel depressed and have some depression when a tragic event occurs, when a loved one dies or when there's some sort of tragedy. That is not the same as the mental illness of severe and persistent depression, which is an overwhelming sense of doom and a negativity that goes beyond the shorter term depression that we can, with support, get through. Then we have other mental illnesses that may not be, well, and another one that is more severe, persistent, maybe the personality disorders, which in a way are misnamed. It was thought to be part of your personality. Actually, again, it is another form of mental illness. And we have things like borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder, which impact a lot of times the behaviors of people. And so that's, I think, why they were called personality disorders. But we have others that maybe are not always quite as severe or may not be as lasting, are more treatable through medications and other things. We have the anxiety disorders, which include panic disorder, social anxiety disorder. We have obsessive compulsive disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. And the knowledge about these are continuing to grow, and we're finding out more as we're able to understand the brain better.
That's really important. Dealing with our homeless population in Yamhill County, I see a lot of social anxiety. A lot of people won't make their appointments if someone isn't holding their hand. Do you find that to be true of the people that attend the NAMI meetings, that unless somebody is actually guiding them, they don't always make the meetings?
I think that's very true. And
Mhm.
also, people stop taking their medications. They'll say, oh, I'm feeling really good, I don't need my meds.
Right.
But they usually do.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, medications, one, it's can be tricky to find the right medication combinations of medications that work. We also know that the most effective treatments are usually medication and therapy or some other therapeutic activities together rather than just one thing.
Mhm.
But many symptoms of mental illness include feeling, whether it's paranoia or feeling that people don't want to be around you, which includes the whole stigma of people not understanding mental illness. So I don't want to, that guy's crazy, I don't want to be around him. Well, then who wants to be the crazy person, right? So
Yeah.
people think I'm crazy, and they think I'm weird, so I'm better off if I just stay alone or stay away from people. But the isolation actually tends to make the illness worse. So we have that dilemma.
That is a true dilemma, because I've seen it throughout the population that we serve, that, yeah, they don't want to socialize whatsoever if they can help it. They want to be left alone, but then to their own devices, it ruins their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And that feeling like I'm not accepted, not okay being with other people, keeps them isolated. And yet as human beings, we need connection. And I think the pandemic has really shown all of us the challenges that arise when we're alone and not with the people that we want to be connected to. We actually are mentally healthier when we are connected with other people.
So Barry, would you like to take this second slide and walk people through it?
Prevalence of mental illness in the United States. 1 in 17 live with live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia or bipolar disease. So 1 in 17.
Yeah, and the above slide portion says, in a given year, 1 in 4 American adults experience mental illness.
Right.
Yes.
And again, this is referring to the serious illnesses such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder.
Right.
So when you include mental illness that may not be as severe or long lasting, it's a higher number than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it
And
says,
again,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Yes, please. Go ahead.
As the slide says, in Yamhill County, the estimate is around 6,000 adults live with severe and persistent mental illness.
Out of 110,000 people that live in Yamhill County.
Yes,
6,000, yeah.
Yeah, that's substantial.
yes,
And it's probably higher than that since the pandemic, because a lot of people have been triggered being isolated and still aren't back to normal.
right. And then it's not counting lesser mental illness that may not be as persistent and long lasting. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, Jen, I'm back to you.
Okay. So some consequences of mental illness. Approximately 10.2 million adults have co-occurring mental health and addiction disorders. And that's something we haven't talked about previously, but yes, when we think about addiction, and that definitely is a problem on many people's minds, it's not always clearly understood that many people with addictions also have mental illness as well. And the two, of course, do not make a good combination. About 26% of homeless adults staying in shelters have serious mental illness. Approximately 24% of state prisoners have a recent history of a mental health condition. Oftentimes they are not even identified, as
Right.
a mental illness, and yet, so it may definitely be higher than that. And so the impact is that depression is a leading cause of disability worldwide, and it's a major contributor to the global borders of disease. So yeah, many conditions are related to mental illness.
Including dual diagnosis.
Yes, exactly. So what we know is that serious mental illness costs America $193.2 billion in lost earnings every year.
Wow.
People who have mental illness and not able to take care of themselves, not able to maintain a job or even get a job. And 90% of those who die by suicide have an underlying mental illness. So we've mentioned this before. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States.
That's an awfully big number for all of the United States.
Yes.
And I'd like to say something personally. When people judge the homeless, the issue of the homeless, and they say, well, they're using drugs and they're smoking and they're drinking, you know what? I would be too. Just think about that. Yeah,
Yes.
but not many people would say it.
But it's true. Yes, alcohol and drug abuse it's a way of coping with the terrible condition of living homeless without knowing, where you're going to sleep tonight, what you're going to eat, how you're going to take care of your stuff, who's going to attack you, etc.
Yeah.
Exactly. And after 30 days, most people have a mental illness that are on the streets. And so it's really important for people to realize that if you see somebody walking down the street and you look at them in a different manner than you would anyone else, you shouldn't, because that person deserves as much compassion as the next. And we need to become a more compassionate America for those that are in need.
And for God's sake, they're people. I mean,
right. And a lot of them tell me, Barry, that they feel like insects. That they don't feel like human beings anymore.
And a lot of people treat them like insects.
Exactly. Listen, we've only got 5 minutes left on this, so I'm going to jump out of here and go to the next part, which is the slide for the upcoming candidates forum.
Oh yeah,
because that's what we really are here to talk about. So I'm going to let you two kind of describe what's on this flyer, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Can you scroll up to see the names of the candidates that have been invited?
The other direction.
The other way. There we go. So
Thank
we have invited from U.S. House of Representatives District 3, we've invited Andrea Salinas and Mike Erickson. For the state District 23, we've invited Anna Scharf and Chris Wright. And for District 24, again, for the state, Victoria Ernst and Lucetta Elmer. And for the Yamhill County Commissioner, we've invited Beth Witowski.
And Kit
And-
Johnson. And Kit
Beth-
Johnson.
And
Yeah.
Kit Johnson, yes.
So
So-
let's talk about the date and where it is this year, because it's changed its venue.
Right, we have held a candidates fair regularly. This year, it is going to be held at the McMinnville Senior Center at 2250 Northeast McDaniel Lane in McMinnville. It's going to be on Thursday, October 6th, between 6:30 and 9 p.m. I will say that between 6:30 and 7, the candidates will be there and people will be allowed to mingle and interact with them. Candidates can bring information to share. And then starting at 7, we'll have the forum between 7 and 9. And during that time, there will be a moderator. The moderator will ask questions prepared by NAMI. There are about 4 questions prepared by NAMI members for the candidates, and they will answer those. And then after that, people attending the meeting will be given cards to write down questions, and we'll collect the cards, and questions will be asked from the audience of the candidates as much as can fill the time from 7 to 9.
So a reminder to the viewers out there, it's Thursday, October 6th, from 6:30 to 9 at McMinnville Senior Center, 2250 Northeast McDaniel Lane in McMinnville. It used to be at the library in the Carnegie Room, but this year it's going to be there, which is a bigger venue, and I appreciate that very much. I'm going to drop this down now, and we're going to just finalize everything. So if you had one thing that you would like people to know about mental illness that you have dealt with personally, would you please just give like a 20-second answer to that? And I'll start with you, Jan.
I have family members who struggle with mental illness, and it's through my experiences with them that compelled me to be part of NAMI, and I do run support groups to help people, particularly parents who have children with mental illness.
That's awesome. Barry?
Oh, I've always kind of dealt with some depression, feeling I don't belong, things like that. And I find it very helpful for me personally to talk to others that have experienced these things. And it will help them too, of course, I hope. But at a homeless breakfast I work at, I sit and talk to these people. I don't want to say these people. I sit and talk to people and find out what's going on.
Yes, there is no other. There's only all of us, period.
Yes.
So thank you, Barry. Thank you, Jan, for being on Speaking Frankly today. I hope that this begins airing early next week on Comcast through McMinnville Community Media and also on Ziply Fiber. Of course, it will go to YouTube in a week, and then it'll go to my Facebook page where many more people than have cable see all of these different interviews that I do. So thank you very much for being on today.
And thank you, Howie.